So it's about building Android apps, and the title came to being because we were a bit tired of all this leveling up your something. So actually in talk, the original name was leveling up or level up your Android build. But then finally, okay, we realized it's a bold statement, right? Building Android apps, so it can be almost anything Android related. But it's really about the build system, right? So, yeah, what is it with the build system? Why are we talking about it, Flo?
Yeah, so the new build system was announced like at Google I/O 2013, I think, and then it came out almost 1 year ago, so it's pretty recent. So yeah, this talk is mostly about Gradle and how to play with it, how to write tasks, yeah. So it's now quite well integrated with the IDE. I mean, you could not write a single Gradle command and just click on a button in Android Studio. But yeah, this talk is more about like getting really into it, seeing what's you know, I mean what's
inside.
Yeah, inside. This.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, you mentioned it, right? The nice integration with the Android Studio IDE, so it's all the same build now, which is, yeah, nice. But before we get into it, we have some disclaimers, and we have to advance that manually here. Did it work? No? Yeah, so we are pretty much learners ourselves, right? So, but we adapted early, and you know, the documentation isn't too broad, and yeah, the learning curve might be a bit steep. Therefore, so mostly it's looking at what other people do, and we want to tell you what we've learned so far. That's disclaimer number 1. Disclaimer number 2: there's lots of little snippets in this talk, so it's a lot about specifics, but actually the message is, you know, the build skills, and it really adjusts to your growing needs. So if you don't follow on the specifics, it doesn't matter too much, you can look it up later. It's more about the general picture, right? I'm gonna click here. Okay, so yeah, we want to make it a bit more engaging, and we want to tell you a story of some young hipster starting out in the Android world, and of course we have the candidate right here. So this is Flo, our hipster developer, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. So yeah, basically.
Look at that shirt, you know, you see it, okay, in style. And yeah, tell us about your great idea. What is it?
Yeah, so like nowadays, like apps like Tinder are quite popular. So at first I wanted to like write an app about like Tinder for cats or for dogs, but actually already exists. So let's try to write some Tinder for turtles maybe.
Sounds pretty good. Tinder's the turtles have needs as well, right? So it's a good audience.
So yeah, the main idea behind this is to like get something out quickly. So having some MVP, some really quick viable product. And then we'll decide later if the idea works, then we want to incrementally make it better.
Right, so yeah, how do you start with the Android?
Yeah, so we decide to like start with Android, but we might extend later, right?
Right.
So this is...
so you just start into Android Studio, right?
Yeah, so just create a new project, then the wizard, and then you end up with like an empty project, and then the first file you can open is the build.gradle, which is inside the app folder, and then I guess most of you like already open this file. It's mostly declarative, so you just see, okay, I have an Android closure, I apply the plugin, which is the Android plugin.
Right. And what we see here is we apply the Android plugin. So the Android build system is just a plugin right into the Gradle build system, and then we just tell the build system what we have there, our specific needs for the build. So there's no task, right? It's a declarative build system. And actually, what's interesting, it's all just Groovy code. So it looks like some specific language, right? It's a domain-specific language built by the Android or enforced by the Android plugin up here. But it's really just groovy script code that's running here in the background, so this is something to keep in mind. So there's no additional language parser in the works here. Okay, actually, yeah, there are some more files that are specific to the build. I have to click here again. Yeah.
Okay, and so when you look at your project, then you see that you have the app folders, which contain all the code specific to your application. And then what you can see here is that it's already a multi-project setup, right? Because in the future we might want to have multiple sub-projects, like maybe a core module for like our non-Android specific code. And then you can see, so there is a roads.gradle file, and what's interesting is that you have also the Gradle proper, which is basically a way to have like a reproducible build. So everyone on your team will have the same Gradle version, so no more, okay, it works on my machine but doesn't work on yours. You can see also there is a settings.gradle that will declare all the sub-projects.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a Gradle multi-project build, and we can, ensure that it really is by asking Gradle. So we use the wrapper to talk to Gradle, right? Make sure that we always run the same version, as you said. And then we just ask which projects do you have, or what's the layout, and in this case here we see this is what it would look like, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, we said it's declarative, so what tasks do we have, right?
Yeah, so
let's just ask again.
Yeah, so when we run Gradle W task, so we have an overview of the task we can run. So we see there is a lot of tasks, mostly like stuff related to like testing, installing, assemble stuff, dependencies, whatever. So you can also run with --all, right, to see all the tasks. Because you might have more tasks than this.
Yeah, right, it's a lot of tasks, but it's not even all the tasks, right? And what's interesting is there's a lot of debug and release, and of course you all know that's the build type that is kicking in here, and if we have flavors, then flavors and build types are combined to form what's called a variant. And then you have all these variant-specific tasks here. And they are all somewhat linked, maybe not all, but the tasks, of course, form a graph of dependent tasks, right? And yeah, if you want to find out, for instance, what some task, like, for instance, here assemble debug depends on, then you can run that task, putting it up here, with the flag dry run, and then it just executes all the tasks that are necessary. It just lists it without executing the actual actions that are would happen without the dry run, right? So, yeah, but this Gradle W still is a bit ugly, right? So, is there anything we can do about that, Flo?
Yeah, so we can use the GDub tool, which is a little script around Gradle that will find the Gradle W script inside your folder hierarchy. So basically, if you are like inside multiple folder, you don't have to say, okay, I have to go up 5 levels, then call the script. So it's quite nice. And then something you can see also that like the name are really long. Like if you want to run compile debug Android test sources, like it's quite hard to actually get it right. So you can just use the camel case, right? So you could just
exactly. So this here basically is assemble debug, right?
For
so
instance,
we can use the camel case abbreviations, yeah?
We can always also see that we can run multiple tasks, one after another.
Yeah, right. And we can run from sub-projects as well. That's nice about the GW script. Yeah, but we say you can run tasks, but there is no run task like running the app, right? From inside Android Studio, it's quite easy. There's a button. You press it and you run the app on a connected device, but it's not happening here out of the box. So we need to make it work. And it's time for first custom plugin, right? So it's not supported out of the box by the Android plugin.
Yeah, right. So we didn't tell that, but actually work for Novoda, right? And so at Novada we wrote a little Android command plugin, which is a fine wrapper around ATV. And then, yeah, it had a lot of different and useful tasks to your Gradle setup. So for instance, now we can just use GW and then run whatever version we want. So here, debug, for instance.
Right, and what you have to do, you have to put the dependency, the build script dependency, right? Not the dependency of your actual project, right? You put it up here in the build script, and then in your Android specific build script, you just apply the plugin. Okay, cool, problem solved. Now you start developing, right? Yeah. And of course you want to focus on turtle specifics, right?
Yeah, I don't want to like reinvent the wheel, spending time rewriting something that has actually been written and probably better than what I did. So use libraries. So what we can see here is that there is some Gradle of this dependency scope thing. So here we compile, for instance, Guava, and we use some test library like JUnit and Mockito that we're using test compile. But actually there is more to
Right,
this.
so this stuff would end up in our class bars, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Wrong button again. So this would end up in our class bus, so it would be put into our APK, but sometimes we have different needs, right? So we want to, for instance, use annotation processing libraries. It's not supported out of the box, so we need a plugin again. Yeah.
So in this case we use the Android APT plugin, so it's for like annotation processing. So this one is specific to Android. And then, so we will have the compiler, and it will not end up bloat our APK.
Right. So this compiler here is only needed at the processor path of the Java C command, right? So it's just put there, and then can do its thing then, right? And next thing is we can also have variant-dependent dependencies, variant-specific dependency scopes. Right, in this case we might have some dependency that we only need for the paid version, like license validations or whatnot, and then we can also depend on some projects, so it doesn't have to be some Maven or other repository dependency. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we've been busy developing, right? So how is it working out with the...
Yeah, quite good. Actually, the APK is already quite big, right? Like adding all the good stuff and then maybe too much good stuff. So
okay, so yeah, we have quite a big app already with maybe just little value, just some, right? We're just starting out, and that's what you might get if everybody works like that. And so we've heard that earlier in the talk here right before lunch. There were some tips about that, and of course, ProGuard is the answer to having all these bloated APKs maybe. And it's quite easy to use actually because it's supported out of the box in the build system, right? So there are just 2 flags, but as pointed out earlier, the devil is in the detail here again, so it needs a lot of configuration so that it can keep the stuff that your app actually needs, right? So be careful to put in all these setup configurations for ProGuard and run your tests and your written test flow, I suppose.
Yeah.
Of course. So run your tests on the release version of your app, right?
Yeah.
And so make sure that the stuff you deliver really works.
Yeah, so it's actually nice. So ProGuard will like shrink your code and also the resources and optimize the bytecode. And as a bonus, obfuscate the code too, so it's harder to reverse engineer.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't do obfuscation, it doesn't do optimization out of the box when you use this script here, so there's a specific one. I think it's called ProGuard Android Optimize here. And a fun fact, if you use Optimize, then enums are converted to ints, so to add to that discussion whether enums matter or not, you can have ProGuard deal with it. Okay, so yeah, we are ready to release.
Yeah, so version of the app, but yeah, we don't want to like So yeah, we want to have this APK and to put it in a folder and maybe, yeah, but we don't want to do it every time we have a new release. It's kind of cumbersome and kind of, I mean, we are lazy developers and good developers are lazy developers, so
right. It was a lot of work to put it into the Play Store, right? All this stuff we had to do there, uploading images and descriptions and APK. So, and we want to keep the APK here. So it's time for a first custom task. So you can put in plugins to do some work for you, but you can also define some specific tasks yourself. It's quite easy. Here we rely on a copy task. We just have to configure that copy task here. So we don't add any execution logic because the copy task knows how to copy already. So we just configure it. So we tell it, okay, these are the sources. Put it there and maybe rename it on the way. And you see here we can use what's called extra properties in Gradle. So you just define it once and you can reference then in other places, also in projects, which is quite nice once you have more than just one module. Okay, awesome. Archived, released, nice. And how is the app doing?
Yeah, actually pretty good, which is quite weird, I guess.
Okay, so you're famous now?
Yeah.
At least among the turtles?
So now it's time to...
And now, of course,
have a bigger team. So bigger team means we need to have some roles. So yeah, we want to have to reuse our code. I mean, if we want to have multiple versions, we have like a lot of code that is not really related to Android, so we want to put that as a project. We want some more testing. We want to make sure that our app is actually working.
Yeah, so our focus is changing quite a bit, right? So in the first phase, we were just about getting it out to get feedback, right? To see does the idea work at all. And now, we have a team. We have to agree upon standards, and we have to make sure that we can roll out more and more features incrementally, right? So it's quite a different needs now. And let's see how we can scale up our build to do that, right? So what's the first thing we might do?
So yeah, the first thing we might do is, like, as I said, we have a lot of code that isn't really related to Android, and we want to put this in another project. So for instance, we call it core. So it's as easy as running this command and then creating a new Java library, and then so now our app depends on this new core module. So we just add a new dependency in the app build.gradle, like combine project core, and then now it's a Rails multi-project.
Right. So now we have one more project, right? And it's a pure Java project. So we can run JUnit tests easily. We don't need any Android specifics in there, right? So of course we can do that in the Android module as well. But it's nice to have it separately. Also because it's enabling us to. That's coming next. So maybe let's skip that here and say, okay, it's enabling us. We can have another module now, maybe a scripting module. Could be Groovy, for instance, or anything that works on the JVM. And then we can use all the stuff we have developed for core and can have kind of an API playground, right? For instance, we might do something like, maybe in core we have an API that talks to a backend server, and we want to test drive that, have some exploratory scripting to find out if the API really behaves as it should, right? Maybe, I don't know if that has happened to you, but to us it happens quite a bit, right? We have some weird behavior, and the question always is first, is it on the app side or is it on the server side? So who's not behaving correctly? And then it's quite nice if you have some man in the middle here, like a scripting module where you can make sure that it's not on the API side or it's not on the app side, and it is on the API side, right? Yeah.
So now we have almost like 4 different build.gradle files, which is quite, like, every time you
it gets a bit
look for the build.gradle file, you never know which one you are actually modifying. It's always the wrong one. So there's a simple fix for this, and you can just rename all the build.gradle file to the actual project name. So we are always sure that we're modifying the right one. So just a matter of adding these 3 lines in the settings.gradle.
Yeah, right. So much cleaner now. Only one build.gradle and the other Gradle files are now clearly named after the project name. Nice. Okay, so next for the core module, we have this nice separation in the Android module. We have tests for the JUnit stuff, and we have Android tests for the device tests or the integration test, right? And we want to have the same separation in our pure Java module now, and it's quite easy to achieve here. You see it because Gradle has the concept of custom source sets, so we can define our own, and here we just call it, in this case, integration test, and then we define where to find the sources, resources, what the class classes should be or what, and then we also need a task to execute these specific tests, and it's also just a simple configuration of some predefined Gradle task of type test here. And then, yeah, we have the same behavior as in the Android module with the Android test, and now we have a task here, integration test, who runs our integration test just on top of the core stuff.
Yeah, so we never know, like, when we have an update for dependency, like, if, especially if we have like a lot of dependency, we never know, like, okay, maybe this one, there's a new version, so we check on the web, and then find the README, and etc. So, yeah, new plugin. Now we can just run dependency updates and have a nice report of, like, which library needs to be updated, and which one are already up to date. So now it's just a matter of, like, checking the changes and updating correctly our dependency. You should avoid to use the plus instead of the specific version, because you will end up with like non-reproducible builds. Like the library might have some breaking changes. Yeah, so you
that might go unnoticed. So we prefer to always to specify the fixed version, so the build will always use the same version, and then of course you have to keep track of what's going on in the development of the libraries. Yeah, great. Next, code quality, right? Okay, so the usual tools available, check style, find bugs, PMD, work out of the box for our Java module, which is great. But it doesn't quite work out of the box for Android, right? Because Android is not depending on the Java plugin, actually it's only depending on the Java-based plugin in Gradle terms. So the task types are actually available, but due to the different layouts of the project, there is not the specific tasks, so we have to define our own. And since we have to do it anyway, like saying where to find the sources and what class path to use and stuff, we can even tweak it a little, right? So we can, for instance, add up here some extra flags. Like, we want that to fail fast in some situations, and we don't want to fail it more immediately in other situations. So we want to make that, we want to introduce a switch to make that happen. And also we'll see then later that we add some extra code after the check style task has run. So how do we make that work with the failing fast? So it's quite easy because Gradle has a concept of properties. So you just give them -p flag on the command line, and you can just ask the project, is that property set? And if it is, you act upon it. So this is nice, and so in this case of check style, we find that check style only creates XML reports. It's not really readable. Might be good enough for some tooling that can read XML, but for us it's easier to have an HTML report, nicely formatted one, and so we use some XSLT transform and or XSL transformation, and we can use AND for that. And who knows AND still? Used to be the default on Android, right? And it's still there, so you can still use it. All your AND knowledge is still of use, and you don't even need to put it into XML. Again, you can use nice little Groovy syntax here. And we use it here, and creates a nice little HTML report. And the same, we saw that earlier here, it's also managed via property here, so we just switch it on or we don't, right? Depending on the use case.
Yeah, Can you go back? Maybe we can explain also the do last. So
Gradle
has so two phases: the configuration phases, where I just read configuration stuff. So here it will be the description and the fact that we in your failure, yes or no, we in your failures.
Yeah.
And then the do last is actually what's executed during the execution phase. So at the end of the check style task, we want to take the XML, which will have been generated, and then like create a nice HTML report.
Yeah, right. So it's actually configuration and then execution. Yeah, good to mention that again. So now, what are the different use cases that we, where we need the different flags, right? For instance, the CI might be a use case.
Yeah. So here at Model we use Jenkins. So you have this property as with like a lot of other properties. You can use this one to make sure if you are on the CI or not using system get end. And yeah, so we can decide what we do specifically on the CI and what we do specifically locally. So for instance, for the check style thing, we might want on the CI to generate full report, right? And locally we want to fail as fast as possible, so we can fix.
Right, this is nice. Okay, so CI working, all the checks run automatically now, this is great. But there's still some manual work to do, and this is due to the Android SDK, which still has to be updated manually, right? So we cannot just pull in the dependencies, or can we? Actually, it turns out we can, because there's another plugin for that. It's called the Android SDK Manager plugin.
Yeah, it's made by this guy, Jack Walton.
Who's a largely unknown guy in the Android community who's...
yeah, so now if you update version locally, you can just like, the CI will just say, hey, we need new stuff, and just download everything and we run.
Right, so and this is especially nice for the CI, otherwise you would have to log in SSH into the machine. Okay, great. So lots of automation already, and now I envision the big red button, or maybe we should make it green for the next time, right? Because it's actually the good button, right?
Yeah.
Just released to the store. So how far off are we? Updating versions. Okay, then we have to automate that stuff, committing the back version changes, and then of course uploading to the stores. Okay, first is the versioning thing. Yeah, it's quite easy, right? We have to persist the version because it's by default it's in the build.gradle, so we cannot leave it there. And then we can just use a custom class. I'm sorry, wrong button. Custom class here, we call it version, that's enforcing our version scheme. And the question would be, where would that class live? And turns out Gradle has a nice facility for that. It's called build source project. So under the build source folder, right at the root of your project, you can create another project, and the output of that project is part of your build process. So the build can use all the stuff you define there, and we just define some groovy classes there, like some version classes. And then we create a task up here that just calls into our custom logic. Okay, that works, and next we have to commit it.
Yeah, next we have to commit it, so we use a library, which is a thin wrapper on Git. Once again, we declare a short version in the extra properties, so we don't have to type all this. And then it's just a matter of saying, okay, I want to add this file, so in this case, the version of properties, and I want to commit with a nice message. Yeah. So here we can see that we use groovy string, right? So we just have to,
here, right, so no need for string concatenation, you can just inline the value with a $sign here, and then it's just converted into a string. So nice little groovyism in your code. Also this with closure is quite nice, right? So it just means on that Git object here you can call these methods. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we want, so GitHub has this nice release feature where you can like push releases. So we want to be able to, at any point, like download previous release and test stuff. So we want to make sure we have these releases on GitHub too. So once again, we use a library, which is a wrapper around the GitHub API.
Yeah, the links are always down here, right? So if you want to look it up, it's quite nice. It's quite easy to do, right? In this case, we have to extend the base class for a task in Gradle. So we really define a custom task now, right? Like the release to GitHub, it is called in this case, you know, and then we just call it through that API. And yeah, how do we use that task then?
But we just like configure it. So we say that for each variant we want to add a task, right?
Yeah, right. So here you see we just, for all the variants, you know, remember it's the combination of build type and what's it called, product flavor, right? So for each one we create a release task in this case. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense for your case, but you might be nice to be able to release also preview versions or whatnot to, at least to GitHub, right? To share that. And then of course GitHub isn't the final destination for our releases because, you know, we want to release to the Play Store, right?
Yeah.
And it turns out.
Yeah, so we can also like release to the Play Store, which is quite nice now. So again, plugin, right?
Yeah, nice.
So we have some tasks here, and then yeah, we can pretty much do anything. I think at the beginning it's a bit like we need to get some code and some PK12 something to access the Play Store, but then after we can just like push the APK, push the description, screenshots,
yeah.
You name it.
It's quite nice, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, cool. Okay, so we're through now, right? So we're just cashing in on your great idea now, yeah. And all works automatically. So it's quite nice. So we are. I hope we could show you how the build scales, right? With this little story, and now let's, you know, what are the key takeaways here, right? It's not so much about the specifics and what I said, but it's more like, you know, if you have custom demands, then Gradle is able to scale up for you. And what would that mean for you now as developers? You know, you really need to get into that stuff. I guess you all are to some extent already, right? So who's not using the Gradle-based Build System by now? Or maybe who's using it? Let's put it more positively. Yeah, okay, everybody, awesome. So you don't need that, but in case you want a little refresher as a good course and Udacity, then drill deeper, right? There's books, there's people still reading books out there sometimes. Okay. Yeah, I do sometimes. Yeah, and then if that isn't enough, there's even more books like this one, and yeah, that really prepares you for a lot more. And finally, thanks to the Android Stammtisch again, the story was told already. So yeah, I'm sorry for all the guys who showed up at that Stammtisch because it was really boring. But yeah, for me it was good because I learned how not to do it, and I'm not sure I now know how to do it. It's great that Flo, you know, to have me out on it. And this is of course just a joke. But I tried to make it, you know, this Goose book is quite famous to some people maybe, and I hope we can come up with a book that is, you know, about that impact on the talk development scene. You know, tester-driven talk development is really something that should deserves more, you know, full book maybe of techniques. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Volker. And it was not boring. It was just, you know, it felt a bit like work, but it was very interesting. So, if you're running a meetup, tester-driven talk development, don't run away. Maybe the audience has some questions. And also, you added tons of stuff to your build system, so that probably means you have some extra time to, you know, have a coffee. So, have a mug. Thank you for speaking here. Same for you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one of the pain points, right, with Gradle, that it's still not fast enough or as fast as people want it.
On the plus side, now you have more time for coffee.
Yeah, right, more time for coffee. But they're working on that. You know, they steal more and more of my coffee. coffee time now, and the next version to come, 2.9, I think, is supposedly much faster than stuff.
That's bad news for coffee time, but maybe you can actually spend the time writing apps. So, has anybody a question for these two? So your talk was that awesome? No, just one question.
Maybe a suggestion or a tip or something like this. You used a local file for versioning, for implementing the version code. We just implemented another method of versioning, just using the git count. Because this is increasing every time, and it's distributed more or less.
It's a good idea.
It's an idea, maybe you can include it, or
thanks.
then you don't need to push to the repository because the information is always there.
Yeah, that's good. Good point.
Just out of curiosity, I saw in your one of the first tasks you showed for archiving your build, building the release package. The task had no dependency to actually build the
right. So it was the most basic thing you could do, right? So you wouldn't even wire it in. Of course, if you want to do it for real, you want to make that depend on your assemble tasks, but that would need some dependency on the variants, which we just wanted to show later in the talk, right? So, but you're right, it was real bare bone plain approach.
Anyone else? No? Thank you. Give another hand to